The morning the letter arrived, the sun was already too bright for bad news. It spilled through the thin kitchen curtains, turning the peeling paint on the walls into a harsh spotlight, as if the world had chosen that exact moment to expose everything Elara Vance had tried so hard to hold together. Her hands trembled before she even opened the envelope. Somewhere deep inside, she already knew. Some days don't knock before they break your heart. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Acts of Heart. Stories like this remind us that even in our darkest hours, light can find us again. Elara stood in her small kitchen in the middle of a quiet Tuesday morning, the kind of ordinary day that never warns you it's about to change your life. Outside, children rode their bikes down the cracked sidewalk, their laughter drifting in through the open window. The scent of fresh bread from the corner bakery floated through the neighborhood. The world felt alive, hopeful, moving forward. But inside that kitchen, time stopped. The letter confirmed what she feared. The bookstore she had inherited from her father, a cozy little place called Golden Leaf Pages, was officially on the brink of foreclosure. Years of declining sales, rising rent, and the quiet invasion of online giants had pushed it to the edge. She had fought with every ounce of strength she had, organizing daytime reading circles, offering free tutoring to kids after school, even hosting small poetry afternoons under the warm glow of sunlight filtering through the front windows. But it hadn't been enough. The bookstore wasn't just a shop. It was her father's dream, built with hands rough from construction work and a heart soft for stories. It was where Elara had learned to read, sitting cross-legged on the worn wooden floor as sunlight poured through the glass, dust particles dancing like tiny stars in the air. It was where lonely people came not just for books, but for warmth, for conversation, for the quiet assurance that someone cared. And now, it was slipping away. That afternoon, she unlocked the store as usual. The bell above the door chimed softly, the same sound that had welcomed customers for 23 years. She ran her fingers along the spines of the books as if greeting old friends. A few regulars trickled in. Mrs. Alderby, who always bought mystery novels. 2 teenagers looking for a place to study. An elderly man who never purchased anything but read newspapers in the corner chair every day. Elara smiled at each of them, hiding the storm in her chest. She didn't tell them. Not yet. She couldn't bear to watch their faces fall. But the truth has a way of surfacing, especially in small communities. 3 days later, a bright orange notice appeared on the front window. Someone must have seen the bank officer pin it up in the early afternoon while the sun was high and unforgiving. By evening, whispers had spread through every cafe and barbershop within 5 blocks. The next morning, Elara arrived early, expecting the usual quiet. Instead, she found something that made her stop in her tracks. A small crowd had gathered outside the store. People stood in the soft golden daylight, holding coffee cups, talking in hushed tones. Her heart pounded. She braced herself for pity. But what she saw instead stole her breath. A handmade sign was taped over the foreclosure notice. In uneven blue letters, it read, "Our stories live here. We won't let them end." Elara stepped closer, her vision blurring. It was signed with dozens of names, neighbors, parents, students, even the mail carrier. Someone had drawn a tiny golden leaf in the corner. As she unlocked the door, people followed her inside. Not out of curiosity, but with purpose. Mrs. Alderby approached first, placing a small envelope on the counter. Inside was a donation, modest but heartfelt. Then came the teenagers, who announced they had created an online fundraiser overnight. The elderly man from the corner chair stood taller than she had ever seen him and revealed he had once been a marketing executive. He offered to volunteer his skills to revive the store's presence. Throughout the bright stretch of that day, more people arrived. Parents who said their children had discovered a love for reading because of Elara's patience. A local artist who offered to host weekend exhibitions to draw crowds. A cafe owner who proposed cross-promotions. The bookstore, once quiet and fading, buzzed with life. Sunlight poured through the windows, illuminating faces filled not with sympathy, but determination. Elara felt something shift inside her. For months, she had carried the burden alone, convinced that asking for help meant admitting failure. But standing there, surrounded by her community, she realized that the store had never truly been hers alone. It belonged to everyone who had found comfort within its walls. The fundraiser grew beyond anything she imagined. Messages poured in from former residents who had moved away but still remembered Golden Leaf Pages as a sanctuary during lonely times. Local news stations picked up the story. During the brightest hours of each day, the shop was filled with laughter, conversation, and the rustle of turning pages. Shelves that once gathered dust were nearly empty by closing time. The bank, seeing the surge of support and improved numbers, agreed to renegotiate the terms. It wasn't a miracle. It was something more powerful. It was collective kindness. Weeks later, on a warm afternoon painted in shades of gold, Elara stood outside the bookstore for a small celebration. Balloons swayed gently in the breeze. Children sat on picnic blankets, listening to a storyteller read aloud. The orange foreclosure notice was long gone, replaced by fresh paint around the window frames. Elara looked at the crowd, her eyes shining under the midday sun. She thought about the morning she had almost given up, how close she had come to locking the doors forever. She realized that sometimes, the darkest thoughts visit us in the brightest daylight, and it takes the courage of others to remind us we're not alone. If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and share it. Your engagement helps spread stories of hope and reminds the world that kindness still exists. Special request: comment the word "second chance" below if you believe every dream deserves one more fight. As the afternoon stretched on, Elara stepped back into the store, the bell chiming with a sound that no longer felt fragile. It rang with promise. She understood now that resilience is not about standing alone against the storm. It is about allowing others to stand beside you when your strength runs thin. In the bright light of that ordinary day, surrounded by people who refused to let her dream die, Elara learned that sometimes the greatest chapters of our lives begin exactly when we think the story is over. And in that small bookstore filled with sunlit dust and whispered pages, hope turned a near ending into a beautiful new beginning.